Willow. We're talking Willow. It's fascinating how this takes what could absolutely be a plot hole in the original and compounds on it. The threat feels much more all-encompassing, despair-inducing, while with the old one, it was a little bit more function first. And that makes sense. It's a movie, so they need to compact it a little bit.
The new series has a lot better dialogue. I think the acting overall is just way more solid.
There's a little bit of tonal whiplash.
I think it's very much Rise of Skywalker, where they have this horrible scene, everyone's dying, and then as soon as it turns around, everyone's like, what?
I think that's a grander writing thing, but I don't think the acting is the problem. Warwick Davis is a lot better now than he was back in the day, because the man was 17.
I think the directing helps a lot.
And I do think it builds on these old pieces very well. How do they balance those kind of four pillars of world building, plot, characters, and theme?
The movie is more grounded in a sense.
A lot of pushback against the show is ironically one of the bigger points of the original movie. Don't judge a book by its cover. Right now people are judging the book by the cover. Hello everybody, welcome to Narratives and Nonsense. We are friends talking about random and recent stories, both newsworthy and otherwise. How's your week?
It's been fine.
This is Connor, our dear friend.
This is Gazorpazorp from The Glock 9.
From Rick and Morty. This is Jordan, Gillidan, whatever you want to call me. I'm here. Hello. I do say that. I do. So, chill week this last week?
Yep, same. Work, climb, sleep.
All the jazz. RT game. The great YouTube channel. I'll be honest, until you guys were talking about it, I forgot that it existed for a very long time. So it's kind of exciting in a weird way. I also had like a rediscovery of a thing that I listened to or watched or what have you with, I started going down the Yogscast wormhole for a bit. That was really fun. Otherwise, goodness, my last week was, we had the end of our sale at work. So that was a big like chunk piece of it. And then, I went down a rabbit hole for playing Stellaris. My entire Saturday was that, basically, that strategy game. I played modded, so Star Wars aside. So much fun. And then I played Destinies. We talked about it a bit before on this podcast, but for that one, we only did one game together and then another game a different night.
Yeah.
I went through to play the base game. For those that don't know, Destinies is a board game that's like app supported. It's almost like a board game, video game combo. I played it at Thanksgiving. I continue to enjoy it. I'm waiting for more expansions to just show up at the doorstep, courtesy of the delivery people. And the going through the base game, it was impressive to see how like well connected and well developed things were for it being a board game. That surprised me. I really enjoyed it. Otherwise, goodness, we've got some news from this last week, as well as going into next week, some uplifting stuff. Here in Colorado, it's going to be cold with like 40s to 50s and cloudy. That's nothing. That's warm for the last couple of weeks. We had so much snow earlier.
So much so, it's already gone.
It's already gone. Yeah. And then
good.
Yeah, and then aside from the news, we've got holidays, and then we today will be talking about the Willow show. The premiere, the first 2 episodes are out on Disney, and we're going to compare it with the original, so stay tuned for that. But going into the news parts, there's a lot of cool stuff. This last week was very like honed in on individual things, which was kind of fun and fascinating. So kicking it off, there was this one person out in India. They are in the northern part of India. They're in, if I pronounce it correctly, Chamkat village, where the person, Dwarika Prasad Semwal, if I said it right, noticed the kind of ongoing like lack of groundwater issues. They were starting to like run low, run out, so on and so forth. It's not a sustainable thing for their water usage. So he tried to do a bit of a door-to-door campaign to push it forward so that you can continue having water. And it started with like, hey, can you just like dig a pit, a hole, a small pond, what have you, on your establishment nearby to you to collect rainwater so it'll continue to pool up and feed back into the groundwater. That didn't fly. As you might expect, people are kind of lazy or unwilling to do a thing. So he ended up shifting gears, and this is the part that I think is really cool. He ended up making 2 little dugout bodies of water and dedicated it to his nephews. And following that, it caught on a little bit more like wildfire, where everybody was almost doing it in lieu of like lighting a candle for a fallen person or honoring a loved
like a
one.
dedication.
Yeah. So this continues on along the way until eventually 7 months later, they have 3,500 bodies of water, like all scattered around this village, and they're still looking to add another 1,000, like in the nearby forest area. It starts to get to the, like, you're on public property. You have to get permissions to do it, but it's caught on that much that they're now properly collecting a lot of that rainwater for a both sustainable practice as well as like almost adding a new tradition to the cultural goings on of the town. So that was a really cool one where you have this tying in of both culture and long-term sustainability. That was something that was, I loved it a lot. It's the power combo and inadvertently like clever marketing. Carrying on from that, another individual, LeVar Burton, is getting honored in the Children's and Family Emmy Awards. This is this next coming week that he'll be receiving a Lifetime Achievement Award specifically. LeVar Burton is most well known for probably Star Trek, and then after that being more importantly on Reading Rainbow, like the man, the face, the voice, the legend, what have you. Following that,
of the industry.
Oh yeah, and what the few moments of him being on the show Community, 10 out of 10. It's fantastic. Going from that celebrity to another one, Dolly Parton has the Imagination Library. It's a free book program. It started here in the States and has since kind of expanded to multiple countries. There was a big milestone in Ohio where for kids that are 0 to 5 years old, they are now more than half of those kids in Ohio are receiving free books every month, where it's the official number is like 360,000 of them worldwide. It's gotten to 5 countries, and then here in the US, it's about 1 in 10 kids between like being a newborn and 5 years old are getting books from this program. So it's just continuing to spread. But that was another really cool thing for just accessibility for reading.
Absolutely, especially at those young ages.
Yeah, and what a segue from the Reading Rainbow honoring a few seconds ago too. You know, going from that to like bigger news things. So, Mpox, or the disease formerly known as monkeypox, is something that became kind of a public health crisis. A lot of countries are starting to be on the watch for it and take additional precautions because it historically has been primarily in Africa.
Yeah.
And it only just recently started to pop up in other places, including here in the States. Well, Africa is now going to be getting its first round of Mpox vaccines. And the way that this came about is the ACDC, so Africa's Centers, plural, for Disease Control, are working with South Korea, who is donating 50,000 of these vaccines, and it's going specifically towards like health workers and places that were the most hardest hit. So it's like almost 100 people this last year have died of Mpox from in the Congo as one example. So going into continuing efforts to fight Mpox, and then as an additional aside, it is something where we're starting to see that become less of an issue here in the States. They're debating on whether they take away the public health emergency aspect of it and they step it down to just hey,
threat.
Yeah, here's the thing, be aware of it, but not as super high alert, especially after, all the quarantine shutdown stuff. People are on edge, ready to go. If something really actually pops up, proper starts spreading through. So I definitely appreciate let's take it seriously. Okay, we can wheel it back now. Going from that to another part of the world in Boston, there is the New England Aquarium. This will probably anger Michael Reeves to great effect. There were 150 plus sea turtles that were rescued by the New England Aquarium. The reason that they needed help is they got what's called cold stunning. So it's hypothermia and then symptoms associated with it where they get pneumonia and stuff. And the New England Aquarium managed to help. It's 120 of one species and then over 30 of another one that they've helped, treated, cured, sent back into the wild. To add to it, something that was really interesting with it is for sea turtles, it's something where unlike, a sea lion or a seal or what have you, it's not a normal behavior to go from swimming around to go up onto the shore and bask in the sun. Yeah. If they're beached, they're stranded, they're stuck there for a reason. And the aquarium was actually pushing hey, if you see turtles, don't, the pun absolutely intended.
No. Wait, really?
If you see sea turtles, if you see them on the beach, if they're somewhere like that, you actually don't want to return them to the water because they're out of the water for some reason. Lately, it's become a rising theory that it's a result of climate change aspects. Towards the beginning of the century, and by that I mean 2000s, it was only 50 were showing up on the beach a year. Now it's closer to 700. So putting out that PSA of, hey, if you see them on the beach, don't return them to the water. They're probably cold. You want to get them some kind of treatment. So consult a wildlife sanctuary or an aquarium or so on and so forth for sea turtles on the East Coast. So there you go.
But
sea
what
turtles.
The fools didn't know, it was Connor who made the oceans colder to defeat the mortal enemy. I'll get you next time, New England Aquarium.
The maniacal cackling continues. And then the last big story, this is again about an individual, is Patricia Gallagher. So this is an older woman that is empty nester. Her kids are no longer in the house. She was getting a little bit lonely. So what she ended up doing is she reached out to a couple of different nursing homes and said, hey, if I come and visit to read 'Twas the Night Before Christmas, it's her and her mom, and bring some stuffed animals. Is that fine? They said, yeah, absolutely. So she brings the stuffed animals and starts reading just to spend some time with some seniors. And when she went to get her children's stuffed animals back, they didn't want to part with it because they thought it was a gift. And instead of somebody that might understandably be oh, hey, awkward, let me explain or whatever, she went, oh, wow, these seniors have turned into small kids again, playing with their stuffed animals and being super bright and cheery about the holiday. Let's double down. And so she ended up posting on Craigslist and the hey, donate your stuffed animals. for this whole affair. This started in 2009. Every year since, it's become this tradition for her to go and collect stuffed animals and give them to nursing homes. So, if it's a lightly used whatever, it's gotten to the point where like a kid for their bar mitzvah celebrations was collecting donations. They had a middle school that was collecting like 400 to 800 multiple years in a row. Within her first 2 years of starting this, she had over 11,000 stuffed animals that she's collected. And even to this day, she says that she gets like 250-ish a week and just keeps donating them to whatever nursing homes need it. So she's just become an inadvertent like Mrs. Claus, just helping out old folks in whatever nursing homes, which is just super sweet, cheery, wonderful. 10 out of 10. Keep up the good work, Patricia. Good on you. Very, very fun and exciting. And going from that, holidays. So, first and foremost, good segue. It is Volunteer Day today. So, shout out to any volunteers, or if you were considering volunteer, maybe now's the time to look into signing up or following through. I've done a lot of volunteer work through like Key Club and such with high school and the like, and with the dance troupe that I'm a part of, Silhouettes, we've had some volunteer shows as well, or moments where we give to the community. So now's the time. Get after it. Following that, it is Soccer Tort Cake Day, which is I found out that was apparently made originally in Australia. I did not know that. I also realized that I like tort cakes more than normal cakes.
Why is that?
like I looked at it, I was like, oh yeah, it's like the denser, tastier version. Me gusta. So if you're looking for some reason to have some cake, now's your time. It is also National Father's Day, specifically in Thailand. They celebrate Father's Day as a national holiday, so it's a bank holiday that's closed down, that kind of thing. Like, it's a full ordeal in Thailand.
Shebang.
Yeah, that was kind of exciting to find out. So, happy Father's Day for all of you in Thailand. And then over in Germany, it is Krampusnacht. If I said it right, trying to channel my inner German. Yeah. So it, for those that don't know, it is the night that Krampus, I guess the equivalent I would say is the coal deliverer, for Christmas season, visits everybody in Germany. In the US, it's something where if you're naughty, you get coal. If you're nice, you get presents from Santa Claus. Well, it's kind of like a power duo over in Germany, where it's, if you're nice, you get gifts, specifically like fruits and the like from Santa. If you're naughty, you get bundles of twigs that are meant to whip bad children. So, just straight Grimm Brothers fairy tale
y'all better
stuff.
Straighten up.
Yeah, like it's almost on the same level of, once removed holiday traditions as like, what is it, Switzerland, or is it maybe it's Sweden. I don't know. That Cox and Grandor have like whole videos talking about other holiday tradition cultures where it's like the Yuletide log stealer type stuff. I love learning about holiday tradition things. So it is Krampusnacht for those that are unaware. Beware. Going from that into much lighter news, it is Bathtub Party Day. So get your rubber ducky.
Splish splash.
I was dangling a map. Bum 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 bum. So Bathtub Party Day. The idea of the day is to take it easy, do a little bit of self-pamperment in the wild, crazy world we live in. Enjoy.
Maybe if you've got a special somebody that can join you. Help you wash your back. Really hard.
And then the final one that we'll be talking about today. There are more holidays. As always, take a look. It's always fun. The final
Would you
one.
need to go further than what we ordain to be important on this most reverent of shows?
Yeah, us who
This is the only holiday.
we avoid all the name holidays. There's so many of them. Every week there's like
It's not a
7.
holiday. It's just like...
Congrats, name. We're very selective. We've only celebrated one name day proper, I believe, and that is Kevin, because he's our roommate. We give him a little shout out. Anyway, that's not today. That was several weeks ago. Today is International Ninja Day. For all you weebs and Japanese culture
win.
enthusiasts
I
out.
win.
I suck at ninja. I actually when we were like backstage for Silhouette stuff, we had a whole like ring of
Yeah,
people
you did a
all
big
play.
circle.
Oh my gosh, that was so much fun. Anyway, I'm terrible at ninja. It's Ninja Day, everybody. Have fun. Throw your shurikens as you might in the show or movie Willow. Because I found out that, well, I looked into it. They do have shurikens in both the show and the movie. And I'm like, did we have shurikens in fantasy medieval Europe? And that quick Wikipedia answer was no. So we just threw it in there. Because let's be honest, George Lucas had a hand in making Willow with, what is it, Ron Howard. And he is a weeb.
Wouldn't be the
Right.
first time he took something from Asia.
No, he's a freaking weeb. Like, it was so much, like a lot of like why R2 and 3PO exist is purely from Japanese cinema, which is just hilarious to think about. So, Willow and tying into weeb and internet, now funny internet. Willow. We're talking Willow. So this is very interesting because we get to do a little bit of compare contrast from the old movie, the new show. We only have 2 episodes of the new show out of 8.
Fresh off the bat.
Yeah, we're about a quarter of the way through, and about the same amount of time.
Yeah.
It's about 2 hours for the movie. We've had 2 episodes. They're a little bit shorter than that, so, you know.
It's close. It's 2 hours.
Yeah. So there's a lot of interesting comparisons. I will say that we will do some spoiler talks later, but we'll start off with kind of like the making of it and things that were good, things that could have been improved, so on and so forth. Starting off with the old one, it definitely has aged in some ways. I mean, the thing was made in 88. So
yeah, like
you've got a lot of just outright development since that time.
computer aid was not what it is.
Yeah. So one example is they have the brownies, which are these very, very small, minuscule, like,
One of them wears a mouse skin on his head.
if you've ever read the book, like Indian in the Cupboard, like they're toy sized, or I guess another example would be, Night at the Museum, like the Owen
miniatures.
Wilson and the other guy whose name I'm spacing on, the cowboy and the Roman, those kinds of things. So in 88, the green screening is rough. I will say that the oversized sets look really good. Like they managed to, in what ways they could, nail the size differential for the very short people. For the new show, we've seen some footage of it, but we've not had nearly as much time with them in scene. So that's something that
We haven't gotten to really see it all coalesce together.
Oh, yeah. So I'm curious to see how that will come about. If it come about, I mean, it's in footage, so
Yeah,
we'd assume it would not just be... Yeah, it's probably not just a throwaway thing that they're only going to have for a bit. It does sound like it's a, come on, gang! Yeah! Type of deal. Other things that were interesting, with the old one, the French accent for the brownies.
Yeah, classic D&D thing of what accent are you using for this fat sauce?
That was really funny. So there's definitely like references to Monty Python and the Holy Grail in some way with the
They literally said, "Your mother was a lizard."
Your mother was a lizard. That was really enjoyable. The choreography, it's fun, but it's definitely dated in some places. They definitely like to rely on the sword swipe against the chest and then they just fall over type thing.
I have seen high school productions of Hamlet with better sword fighting, but
yeah.
what you gonna do?
It's less fighting and more just the hero goes and wins kind of stuff that happens in the original. I'd also say that some of the armor costuming is a little goofy looking in hindsight, or even like the troll costuming is a little bit wonk in hindsight. Like they just look like gorilla suits.
Just like short guy in spiny ghillie suit.
Yeah. Things that, as far as the filmmaking goes for the old one, that I think are done pretty well. Whatever shape-shifting and it's not CGI, but like superimposed visual effect stuff, that looked pretty good, especially given how long ago it was. And I'll also say the simpler costumes, like Willow, is very
actual,
recognizable.
Like, clothing.
Yeah. You can tell that it's Willow simply because of his clothes, just outright. Like the entire movie. That's pretty cool. I'll also say that from an acting side, transitioning from old to new, I think very heavily that Warwick Davis, sensibly, is a lot better now than he was back in the day. Because the man was 17 for the old Willow. And he's not bad throughout the whole thing, but there are some moments where I was just like, with the new one, I think that there's a lot more emotional complexity for his acting. I'll also say that the other actors in the current one, I think are much more interesting, much more believable, even in the sense that they're like, I like to use the word MCU-ified. I do think there's a lot more humor forward in the newer stuff. Granted, we're 2 episodes in, so maybe we're getting to more of the dark fantasy later. But I do think that they're much more enjoyable to watch and like hang out with. While with the old one, it was a little bit more function first. And that makes sense. It's a movie, so they need to compact it a little bit, get things moving.
But I will definitely say the new series has a lot better dialogue. I think the acting overall is just way more solid. I think the directing helps a lot, and just having that time gap of also multiple different directors, which is nice.
Yeah.
Because like Mad Mardigan, I love that character and I love Val Kilmer, but I don't know what was happening with that guy in the original movie. Like it was like
he was having a time. He was having fun. I think that's for sure. With the new one, this is something where it's not really a spoiler because out of news things, Val Kilmer has been working around health issues because he has cancer. So he unfortunately is not able to partake in the new show. He was going to leading up to it. But then
Backstreet Boy World Tour hit.
Yeah, good old Backstreet Boys. The whole shutdowns for Backstreet Boys.
All down.
It all went to
almost
south.
As bad as SantaCon.
So for health reasons, he wasn't able to partake for this first season. Assuming there is a second season, he could potentially, at that point, unrelated to cancer stuff, it's the cancer plus Backstreet Boys. That's a problem. So that's something that we could potentially see going forward is a return of Matt Mardigan. I'll also say the way that they've written him out, I think.
Thankfully, it works famously with like his characterization and like where he was in the first film.
Yeah, a lot of people, there's a lot of negativity about the Willow show. We're 2 episodes in, and I don't think people realize that. But and there's also
y'all must be like omnipotent or something, or like, am I the only one that doesn't see the future around here? Like,
I'll also say there's a little bit of what I would call nostalgia blindness, because Matt Mardigan wasn't really sold on the save the world quest of the original movie initially. It took a lot of back and forthing to get him on board, and I think that he's a very impulsive character from what we see in that first movie. So him going off to like figure out a way to save the day type of thing, I think it makes complete sense for his character. He would not be beholden to
any
his duties
or what's lined in front of him.
Yeah, if he hears that, you know, there's a cure-all solution, I think he was absolutely the type to just be like, we're going.
Very much the instigator of the party.
Yeah.
He's going to kick the door in.
Or
regardless.
like, or going from like a D&D perspective. Yeah, you absolutely need to write him out. And what a in-universe way to write him out appropriately is just go. Go try to save the world.
He's doing the
solo
thing.
Ride himself the way through, what have you. Other things for the new show. I think that it's fascinating, without getting into spoilers, how this show takes what could absolutely be a plot hole in the original and compounds on it. Prophecy is a huge thing for that original, and to some extent it can feel like prophecy was unfulfilled. So seeing where the show could go with it, I think that's fascinating. And then how they make the world building push things along, because I do feel
it's
like
a lot more present in the show, like throughout, because we have that time now, which is nice.
Yeah, it for a little bit of context, there's, you know, about a 20-year gap or what have you between the original movie and the show. Makes sense. Actors age. With the original, I felt like in terms of like world building and pace, it felt a little bit more roller coastery. One thing you were describing when we were kind of gathering our thoughts about the two is that it's kind of they have a small problem, they try to solve the problem, obstacle happens, rinse and repeat a lot for the movie, which can feel very stop and go a lot of the ways. I think with the show, it starts off slow, but then they get an objective, they're going for objective, and that's the end of that. And I think that gives it a little bit more forward momentum of what we've seen so far. That's my thought.
I feel like the movie is more grounded in a sense of it's like, I think a lot of things can feel like a story because everything is just, we're slightly going through each little thing with whatever like that. But it comes to the point of it's like they get to a place and then it's not what they said. So now we have to adapt from there, which then gets us to here, which gets us over there. I actually think it's really well done.
Yeah.
I'd say it's probably one of the better parts of the actual structuring of that movie.
I'll also say, in thinking about themes, I think with the movie, the pacing makes a lot more sense with what the themes are for that. And I'm very curious to see how many or how those themes kind of carry into the show. Because I do think the Willow movie is very thematically rich in a lot of ways. In addition to, you know, this fantasy world building thing that they've put together. Going back to the new show, one thing I will appreciate about it is I do think that the stunt, choreography, effects, things that you would have expected to get better with time are very much improved with time.
Absolutely.
I think it holds up fairly well.
The actual choreography in the action scenes is picked up quite a bit. Yeah,
I'll also say that to me, the threat feels much more all-encompassing, despair-inducing, nerve-wracking in the new one. Part of that might be how it's filmed and how it's orchestrated. I feel like with the original, it's there and it's chasing them, but I don't feel the stakes quite as much up until the end.
The dogs were really good. Those I felt were great. And then you have these goofy looking evil knights riding around.
Yeah, with like skull faces.
Yeah. So that one kind of, I preferred a lot more when it was these weird monstrous beasts. And
maybe that's
initially
the effects of the costuming better. And just time gets better so you can present the scary thing as scarier or being scary as opposed to just like, here's man in suit. I'll also say that I do very well believe that the cast in the new one is much more I think the word I would use is invested in their role. They're taking it very...
Yeah, this isn't a payday one-off movie.
Yeah, and it's not just we're here for funsies. Even though there is a lot of humor, I do think that for the moments that are serious, in terms of what is written, I will say, like, MCU-ified, there are moments where, like, somebody dies, there should be at least, like, a little bit of a harrowing or a sad beat just washes by. I think that's a grander writing thing, but I don't think the acting for what was likely directed for those moments is the problem.
You can argue always that, like, in this world, death comes easy, and it's just a possibility of it. And maybe these people are just confronted more with it, but
who knows? And
I agree. I think it's very much Rise of Skywalker, where they have this horrible scene, everyone's dying, and then as soon as it turns around, everyone's like, whoa!
Yeah, there's a little bit of that, like, tonal whiplash.
Which is seems to, even outside of just MCU, but just Disney in general, has been a bit of an issue. Yeah, with some of their more recent stuff.
Adding to that, I think with the original movie, helping with tone is music. I think the music in the original does a really good job of conveying whatever emotion in the moment. Like, you have a loving glance from Sorsha here or there, or like Mad Mardigan's looking through floorboards and has his romantic soundbite come in. Those kinds of things. I think that it's used very effectively in it. With the new one, I do think there's like, for most of the show, it sticks to that kind of fantasy orchestral score kind of stuff. It is a little bit weird when we get into credits territory because it just goes straight into contemporary. Here's lyrics, like electric guitar or what have you. And
I think it's a good shocker.
It's weird. I don't.
I think you're weird.
I don't know how. I like it by itself. I don't know with it built into, like, the transition from the scene. I'm just mixed opinion at the moment, I think, is where I would put it. It feels very Spider-Man ending, teen growing up story for, like, the modern audience. It feels like one of those moments where, I mean, they just... what electric guitar?
I like it as like I'm sitting here in my nice little fan that is wrapping up, and then all of a sudden they drop it and it's like,
you're like, shoot, that's the end of the episode, kind of thing.
I had that, but definitely at the end of episode 2, where it was a big reveal, and then
so it's interesting. I think that it is definitely a creative choice. It may be a little bit more. I mean, for me, I'm pretty split. I can almost guarantee people are upset about it. You like it. So
honestly, I don't care. It's the end of the like, you're going to skip this 90% of the time anyway.
That's fair. I'll also add the art style for both the credits as well as some other smaller pieces scattered about. I hope we get to see more of it. To me, it feels very, here, let's take a look at the map in Lord of the Rings, which I think is really cool for, like, the fantasy tie-in trope of let's look at other stuff. I don't know what
world building.
It's not even the world building, because it's
you're such a junkie. It's not.
Well, in Lord of the Rings, it's world building in that let's look at the map. Mm-hmm. It's like, here's a box, it's painted. That's just we're not using camera anymore. Let's just throw a splash of art in. I think that's kind of cool. And then for the credits, they use that throughout the credits, which, you know, If there's one thing that Disney is doing pretty well through a lot of its shows, the end credit sequences are pretty cool. I'll just throw that out there. So, plot spoiler time. If you really care about spoilers for 2 episodes of a show and a movie that came out in 88, now is the time to leave.
Why are you here?
Why are you here? There's already light spoilers that have happened.
I don't like you.
But we're gonna keep.
You know that.
We're gonna keep going. So, the original movie, in terms of its plot, its structure, just diving right into it, I think it's relatively predictable throughout large chunks.
It's one of those things where it's like they tend to foreshadow a lot of stuff, and you're like, "Yep, that's gonna happen."
Yeah, it's very one for one.
There's literally like the Queen Badmorva, the evil queen. She has this like right hand. Bavmorda has this like right hand man advisor type, and he's like, "Oh, I have foreseen that your daughter will betray us," and she's like, "I trust her more than you," and you're like, "I don't know why, but okay."
Yeah, it's very on the nose for those things. Or like, all right, they're gonna make eye contact. All right, they're gonna fall in love. All right.
Oh, there's a slight glance and a little bit of suggestion.
Like I think
together.
I think maybe the least predictable like plot point thing to happen is Willow grand finale has baby Allura, who's destined, foretold to end the reign of Queen Bavmorda, and he's walking up to like go and hand her over to the shrine and goes, "No, you know what? I'm gonna send her where no evil can ever touch her," and then does a disappearing like sleight of hand regular old magician trick where, haha, look, she's gone, and the queen's so taken aback, upset by that because she
vanishing herself somehow.
Yeah, she ends up like stepping into her own
which
ritual.
Is always good because like everything is set up well in this. Nothing is out of the blue. It's established things, and it's fun callbacks that have
at the very beginning of the movie, we get to see Willow do a disappearing pig trick where he does here's the pig and and it's gone, and then it comes out from under the stage or whatever. It's very endearing, but it's not terribly surprising. I think that's the most surprising thing.
Yeah.
Willow as the normal character, he's just this small Elwyn. He doesn't.
His magic hasn't really worked out.
Yeah,
he's done it. It's
yeah. He wins through being clever. That's probably the coolest piece.
It's very much in the beginning. What is the finger that relies on all the magic or whatever it is, and
the magic
it's his own, and that's the magic that Willow can do. Because all the other times it didn't really work out, so he used his. Yeah,
so I think thematically it works really, really well in...
He's saying illusion wizards aren't real wizards? Is that what you're telling me?
So, carrying from that to the new show, again, I do think it builds on these old pieces very well. If this
is where like the structuring of the actual world is really going to start like paying off and not just being such a backdrop, which I think will be fun.
Yeah, the original has a lot of, hey, take a look at this as we kind of fumble our way to the end goal. With the new one, the plot is very much, look, this is what needs to happen. The prince, the son of Sorsha and Madmartigan, has disappeared. So the princess Kit, who's very like badass warrior, don't tell me what to do, I would say in a similar vein as Sorsha in the original, mixed in with Madmartigan's
not as beholden to her mom.
Rejection of authority. I think that's something that Kit as the princess in the new show, it's interesting to see how that kind of through line is built. If you're going to recreate Sorsha and Madmartigan, it's their kids, Kit and Eric.
Who are kind of a fun, like, in-between scale of the two.
Yeah.
And Eric is, of course, named after
the like, chivalrous proper knight in the first movie. Eric
leaves Madmartigan in his cage.
Yeah, that ends up dying at the end of it when they're fighting together in the grand finale battle, what have you.
The weird, like, gauntlet sword thing.
Yeah. So, that's something that I think the new show does really well. I also would say for like a plot aspect, it has a pretty straight through line of the end goal. Let's go rescue the prince. And also, you know, the rumored Elora Danan might return and save like the grander kingdom. But we don't know.
Where is she?
And I think this this show versus the movie sets up that grander mystery, or not grander mystery. It sets up mystery pieces that have yet to conclude.
Like breadcrumbs.
Yeah, it does a lot of breadcrumbing the trail for the rest of the show. Now, granted, it is a show. Of course it should. But I think that the breadcrumbs are really interesting and fascinating. And I think add a lot more depth than what the original movie had, which is, here's your end goal. Just keep trying to get to it kind of thing. With this, there's this idea of like, okay, Elora Danan is rediscovered. It happens that she
is actually the girl that Eric is crushing on.
Yeah, so Elora,
who's a commoner.
Yeah, her real name is like
her commoner name. Dove.
She's nicknamed after the bird by Eric, but her actual name is like Bartholomew. I don't know. It started with a B.
Or Ella,
but she goes by Elora. Elora is like the predetermined, prophecy-fulfilled princess to save the realm from evil. Then you have Eric and Kit, who are the prince and princess of the current rulers, Sorsha and Madmartigan. And then you also have like neighboring kingdom with their prince, Graydon, who has an arranged marriage with Kit. So that adds additional complication.
Very not into it.
And he's not really into it either, but he's like, hey, if we're gonna rule the realm, once we're in charge, we don't have to do what our parents did, which I think is interesting to hear that he also is not gung-ho about it.
Well, and it's interesting because I wonder too, it's like, is he just gonna be like, let's play the game, and then when the game's played, we win. Rewrite all the rules, we make our own game and we're good.
Yeah, so
it's a smart way of like thinking outside the box. Cool little trick you might be able to play, which is
like grander strategy kind of person.
It's like, we just play this for the short term.
Yeah, and then there's the romance part of it of Kit and Jade, who is the knight, the female knight, the one exception that they've made for females to join knighthood, where it's like, okay, if Kit doesn't end up marrying whatever, does that end up happening? You also have a very sweet scene between Graydon and Elora. She's trying to learn magic, and Graydon's very supportive. It could breadcrumb it either as they're just emotional support buddies, like, yeah, you got this kind of thing. But it could also be a potential lead into maybe Graydon actually properly falls in love with Elora, which would just complicate things even more. You just get like
issues between him and Eric, or create this love triangle, or unrequited feelings could cause him to want to be whatever.
Yeah, so you have multiple relational love interest triangle things happening all over.
A lot of things are funneling out.
Yeah. So I think that's something that the show could go in a lot of directions, and I think the implications, if executed well, could be really, really interesting. It also has a good relationship with mentoring. So Willow, as the semi-failed sorcerer, he's not taken seriously. Yeah. He does have the capacity for magic.
Absolutely.
But he's not the greatest sorcerer that ever lived.
His best trick wasn't even magic.
Yeah, it was sleight of hand. Yeah, he did a dex roll on an arcana check. If you go you know, it's something where Willow's trying to teach Elora magic. How he learned magic was basically his old man.
Do this!
Yeah, the bones. I will consult the bones, basically said, believe in yourself. And then his like proper mentor, Finn, old lady Razel,
Raziel.
Sure. She keeps shape-shifting throughout the show, or throughout the movie of the original.
Off as some kind of marsupial lemur.
Turns into a crow, turns into
probably
a
some of the best visual effects in the movie right there.
It really is super cool. So for her, like, she basically just keeps coaxing him through it step by step. And he and calls it a day. He's also got that wand to help facilitate that. So we've not really seen him be a really good sorcerer, with one exception, and that is he's seen the future. Supposedly, he's had visions. Yes. He's heard.
Had a prophecy all sold.
Yeah, and the prophecy takes a dark twist compared to the first one. Because in the first one, Elora Danon's gonna save the world and
see Queen.
Yeah, we'll see Queen Bavmorda no longer be an issue. We're done. It takes a dark twist in the future in the show where one of the other characters asks him, like, you saw Elora on the throne, didn't you? And he goes, I lied. I didn't. I woke up. My body was broken. There were dead people everywhere. And I saw Elora. She was on the ground. She was dead. If the realm is to be saved, Elora must die. And that is such an intriguing promise of, like...
Oh, yeah.
Of where the show could
serious go. Inter-party conflicts. What are we doing to either convert this? Do you believe this?
From a D&D or a video game perspective, all right, decisions time. Yeah. Which one are you going to go with? Is this going to be something where you accept the prophecy? Because the whole original is we're following this prophecy as much as we can, and thematically the prophecy kind of almost doesn't matter because Willow's the one that won it in the end with haha, look, Elora's gone.
But did Elora being around affect that? Because that's the only reason it's there.
Yeah,
it's the tricky prophecy of, like, you know, it's in every
how tragedy. Literal do you take it? Kind of thing.
In what way did they mean that? How did they mean it? Did they say by Elora's hand? Did they not? You know?
Yeah, with the vision that Willow has been granted and that the show is kind of built upon, Elora is tucked away, hidden away for her entire life. She doesn't even know who she is until she meets Willow, and Willow reveals it.
Sorsha as well doesn't want her to do anything. She just wants normal, commoner life for her.
Yeah. So if this is the whole premise, that this vision is Elora must die for, like, everyone to be saved in all this death and destruction, are they going to embrace it, or are they going to try to circumvent it?
Well, and also the classic thing is, it's like, is this what could happen, or is this what will happen?
Yeah.
Is this a prophecy or the future?
And is this a misinterpretation? Is she actually dead, or is she
what's the there's no context for it, right?
Yeah.
And I always I pointed out, like, at the beginning of the movie, when Willow's talking with his elder, he's like, we must consult the bones. And then he throws the bones down and is like, the bones tell me nothing. Yeah. So I really look at that of, like, with the first movie's prophecy, that it was just kind of a vagary to incite action from somebody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
As to the actual accuracy of it, I think it wasn't.
I think
it didn't really matter.
Yeah, I think in the original, thematically, that's what the conclusion is the prophecy, the magic, it is in you. That's the finger test. That is you. It is you. That's the whole point of the test. And the idea of, like, pursuing self-actualization. I'm curious. And this is something where I think the show very easily could fail in not respecting, but not embracing the same thematic core of the original movie, is in pursuing those kinds of thoughts being presented for the audience. If even in a very subtle way, the idea of, like, self-actualization, prophecy, magic, etc., or is this just a you are you, be your best you, and you will achieve whatever? That's something that I think we've yet to see. It could very easily be dropped in favor of less thematic, more lore, world building,
high fantasy.
Yeah,
fulfilling the prophecy.
It gets so stuck into its own lore that it doesn't even focus on what that thematic component is. I could very well see it. We've not gotten far enough, but the other thing that's kind of interesting is the idea that sorcery is kind of like the old idea of how the Force work. Anybody could do it. Not everybody will do it or will learn it. But in the original, Willow, hey, he's just a regular old person. He doesn't know sorcery. And
I think it's very Captain America-esque, where it's like anyone has the capability, but you want to make sure you're putting that capability in the right person's hands, which is kind of the finger test, in my opinion.
Yeah, and at the start, Willow fails it, but then eventually comes around and succeeds with it.
He second guesses himself, and that's why he fails it, which is, I thought that was a really great thing. That was
a good way to...
Very interesting.
Yeah, and with the new one, Alora fails the finger test after thinking about it and being hinted towards, which I think, like, if there were a thematic thing, the fact that they're trying to force self-actualization, assuming that theme carries through, might play a role.
Well, and it's funny because, like, from their own experience, you would think they wouldn't think much of that, because it's like you said, Alora was supposed to be the one to do it, but she didn't. Willow tricked her.
Yeah.
So it's very funny that we're now 20 years down the line, and all of a sudden the accuracy of the prophecy really matters here.
Yeah. Yeah. So, ultimately, I do think there's going to be this very weird wrestling that this show needs to figure out
We will find out.
We will find out how they navigated between world building, versus plot, versus characters,
kind of maintaining that emotional core, that theme, the thematic core.
Exactly. I think that's the four barriers to entry.
That theme, that kind of whole thing of what finger is the one you want. Like, that's why I think, like, Willow is not an Oscar-winning movie that's super famous, but, like, I really like it due to that. Like, that really is what kept pushing me through.
I honestly think that with the kind of character development thematic heart, like the genuine emotional point they wanted to make in Willow, I think that's what has stood the most test of time.
I was really impressed. I was looking at this as I watched it when I was like maybe like 10, 8 years old. Couldn't remember anything about it, but so I thought it'd be some stock standard. We want to do Lord of the Rings, but we don't have the rights to it, so this is what we're doing instead. But I was really surprised.
Yeah, it has a lot of heart, the original one.
I'd say it's very Last Unicorn-esque, where it's not the most solidly stitched together tapestry, but it really does make up something rather alluring and cool to watch.
Yeah, and that's something that right now, as we stand, I'm not sure the new show has quite hit that chord, but it's on its way. And one of the bigger questions posed with these first 2 episodes is, does this have to have the right to exist? So far, I absolutely think yes. Will it be good, bad, or terrible, or great? Yeah. That remains to be seen, and I don't think we'll have a solid answer until the show concludes.
We're set up for something good, but the execution of that will be something we have to find out on.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is really going to rely on how do they balance those kind of 4 pillars of world building, plot, characters, and theme. And I think right now a lot of like the pushback that I've seen about it is this idea of like, oh my gosh, it's only MCU, let's take a dump on what the original source material was to go our own way. Uber wokeness vibe is what a lot of people are going for. And I'm like,
that especially the last part, I think that's a real discredit to Willow, the movie, because like I thought it was something that was really cool. Like, it was one of my favorite parts of Mad Max Fury Road is like Furiosa, and that's a very understated, strong female character where it's not a big deal. It's just accepted that this character is capable and competent.
Yeah.
And I really like that in Willow, where our main bad guy was a strong sorceress who had her own ideals, was doing things. We don't really know why, but I just think she's evil. But you have Sorsha, who's, you know, kind of playing that kid looking, you know, it's usually the son looking for the father's approval, but we have that swapped around with him. And she's capable. She fights Mad Mortigan. She loses against him. She wins against him. She outsmarts him a few times, and then they end up getting together, and she becomes good, which is a very fun, good thing. These are complex characters.
It's a very heroic trait.
Yeah.
Applied not to a male, but to a woman.
And we're not just good. We're not just bad. It's that spectrum in between.
Yeah.
And a lot of people were mad about the Kit and Jade stuff.
Yeah.
It was like this was
their relationship and their entitlement, empowerment as women. And I'm like, what? Like, hold on. Like, I would say that the show in the modern context pushes against the grain, much like the original movie did, where here's the journey of the hero story, except it's about this small Elwyn little person played by Warwick Davis learning how to self-actualize within the story, and then your chosen one, your person that'll save the universe, is a baby girl, completely helpless, completely useless. Realistically, Alora in that first movie is a MacGuffin.
And her biggest contribution is continuing to keep the people around her together because they're just so infatuated with this little baby girl, because that's just how people tend to work.
That was it. Like, that's all she is she's just something that everyone rallies around, but she doesn't really do anything herself.
Be cute.
Yeah.
That's her biggest contribution.
She does cry. Sometimes at inopportune moments. Sometimes more opportune. Like when she's about to die. Good. You know, if there's one actor that nailed it through and through, whatever they did to get the baby to do what they needed.
It's two actors.
Makes sense. That makes sense.
The reason they do that is the same reason Mary-Kate and Ash. Exactly. Same thing from Full House.
I'm like, I know this answer.
Also, with babies in particular, they're, you know, they need to get fed. They're a lot more. So you got to kind of you got one good and going and primed up, and then you just, okay, we're good. We'll deal with this one now.
So I think right now, one of the bigger things with the show versus the movie, and a lot of pushback against the show, is ironically one of the bigger points of the original movie, and that is, don't judge a book by its cover. Right now, people are judging the book by the cover. We've only gotten really the cover.
Well, and that's the thing. We don't even know if Kid and Jade is going to continue to be a thing. You know, we've seen characters become cursed by the enemy. We've seen characters who are bad become good in the movie. So who knows, like, what all can happen.
I'll also say, in terms of, like, raising stakes, I think that and carrying it through to this new version, this new material for an expanded universe kind of thing, I think the original has this aspect of the stakes, while they do increase, are kind of mitigated by what happens. I
think it's more the scale increases. Like, the stakes are always kind of the same.
But the scale,
exactly.
That's a great way to put it.
You go from a town to a slightly bigger town to a full fortress, but the stakes definitely.
You get individuals. You get the ruffian who knows how to fight. Yeah. You get the turncoat. You get the army.
Slightly scarier, but
that's a great way to put it. The stakes are the same. The scale continues. I think with the show, it has a real potential. I'm not going to say promise, but potential of...
Because we're only 2 episodes in, so it'd be kind of stupid to make some big, bold claim. Weird idea.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
So with the show, there's a lot of opportunity for things just going against each other. Let's start with as simply as Sorsha and Willow don't get along. I think that's completely fair and reasonable. They were on very opposite sides for most of the original movie. It makes sense that if Sorsha is raised by basically the devil incarnate, that she might have very different ideas from what Willow would be doing and thinking and wanting for how Alora is handled and whatnot. And I think that's something that by itself could come back into the fray. In addition to, and this is where I think raising the stakes comes in a little bit, the potential turncoating of things. You get a low-key vampirism, zombieism, what have you,
the Gales, weird, whatever.
Yeah, they end up poking Jade's, I don't know if it's outright father figure, I forgot.
Like mentor.
The like head knight of the guard within the kingdom.
Best warrior.
Yeah, who goes to assist. He starts succumbing to whatever this like mental plague, what have you.
So
and now he's actually properly, he's properly now an antagonistic force going to kill or beat up or capture Allura.
Possible problem we might have to solve in future.
Yeah, so that's something where more people might fall for that same issue. Maybe even Allura herself, like, turncoats. There's so many things that I'm like, okay, we've got all the proper breadcrumbs. Let's see how this enacts. I also think that in a very similar vein to Andor, Andor, like Willow, had a limited release for its premiere where with Willow, it's 2 episodes. With Andor, it's 3. We had a whole podcast about those first 3, and my gosh, I really do think releasing it in that chunk saved the show, because the first 2 episodes, it's a lot of, okay, we're building towards something, we're getting into a direction, we're not quite hitting it, and then episode 3 happens, and to me, with Andor, everything just clicked into place. I'm like, all right, I'm completely sold on this show, and it only just got better and better with that show.
I will very much say I'm expecting a lot out of episodes 3 and 4 of Willow.
Yeah, it's something where I think for Willow, we're 2 episodes in. We have seen some of that promise happening, but not quite as much. You have less time to, like, here's the delivery, and it's also a shorter overall show at 8 episodes compared to 12 for Andor. So I think that we have a lot of promise and we have a lot of ambition for where the show could go. Whether it follows through, to be determined, but so far, I am very much sold on it, but with a pause, a hesitation for trusting whether the deeper character themes, etc., the follow through on this promise will succeed.
Trying to keep that tether to the original, that emotional core, thematic core. Sorry.
Honestly, with Andor, to me, I think they not only succeeded at that thematic tie for like the original trilogy, the fight of rebellion against Empire, they added to it, which I think is insane given how much weight would push it down. The fact that they said the ideas that they did in Andor, I think that's something that has me very, very excited to see if they're able to do that same kind of thematic care and concentration in Willow. There's the potential.
But that's only so good for so long.
Yeah. So, right now, I would say...
Looking forward to it.
Watch it. Maybe you binge it. Like, if you put it all together in one complete package, it might be even better than just right now. We only have the first 2 episodes, so we're going to have to wait and see. But I think it is worth the watch. I think it is a little bit more polarizing, mainly because the original struck some kind of different chord that didn't hit for me. I also think it's just one of those, like, anti-woke police aspect. I'm just like, I really do think that the show pushes the same boundaries that the original movie did, just for a new audience and a new context.
Which I'll say once again, I was surprised. I didn't really expect that out of the movie. Like, the show was, but like that, that was something. I definitely say check out the movie if you haven't.
Yeah.
It's 2 hours.
Yeah, it's a fun watch, and I would say for me, the first 2 episodes were a fun watch too. I do think it starts slow, but it picks up and it keeps going, and I mean, Warwick Davis is just a gem. He's very, very fun in most anything he's in. I can't think of a moment where I haven't liked Warwick Davis in a project, so if for nothing else, it's for that boy. But yeah, I'm very excited. Where can we check you out at?
As always, 5-String Connor on YouTube. Right here, as always, that was the main stuff.
Oh yeah. And then if you want to see more of me, I am Gillidan for the win. I stream sometimes. We're on a little bit of a break for the moment, but it will have more Kingdom Hearts in the future, which I'm very excited about. Otherwise, you can see both of us here Mondays, evenings, narratives and nonsense. Woohoo! Anyway,
have a good week, everybody.
Yeah.
Love each other.
Fantastic rest of your week. Take care. Fade to black.